Rihanna at 1019 The Fox Wednesday. Hope you have a beautiful start to your day. Tops of 14 degrees today. Bit of a cloudy oversight at the moment as the sun rises, but it's going to be a stunning day. Going to lift around 11 o'clock this morning into a perfect day.
We love all our healthcare professionals here in Melbourne and Victoria, the things they see, the incredible job they do. But back to the things they see. This is one of our favourite things. A couple of years ago, we spoke to Tim Booth, who is an intensive care paramedic who released a book at the time called You Called an Ambulance for What? And we heard some of the best stories we've heard because you wouldn't believe what people call ambulances for. Well, he now has a brand new book out called You Went to an Emergency for What? And now we want to hear what people are going to emergency for. Tim, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me again. We'll see if we can top that last story, hey?
Well, yeah, I know 100%. you this is great. After you wrote You Called an Ambulance for What? Now, did you get lots of emergency or medical professionals contacting you saying, oh, you've heard nothing. Wait till you hear these stories.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the reason this book came about. The book was a bit of an unexpected success, and I started getting recognised in the ED by the doctors and nurses. And the first thing they would say after they said, how much trouble did you get in for writing that book?
Yeah.
The next thing they would say is, you should write a book about this place because exactly as you say, Fifi, you've seen nothing yet, and you should tell some of the stories we see in here. So I said, you know what, tell me the stories and I'll be the human shield again so that you guys don't get in trouble and I'll cop all the heat. We'll see if we can come out today.
Did you get any trouble? Did you get a little bit of a tap on the shoulder?
Look, yeah, I've got to be careful what I say, but let's just say some questions were raised that I had to answer to.
Well, what about, can we start with, Tim, why did somebody take a cat to emergency?
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, it was actually me that took the cat to emergency. And I'll tell you why. So, well, look, as we know, there's a lot of people that absolutely won't leave the house without their pets. You know, these days people take their bloody chihuahuas to the pub and whatnot. They just will not move unless the pet comes along. So we found out this day that this even extends to a life or death situation because this poor lady, she was critically unwell, but she absolutely wouldn't budge, wouldn't come along to hospital unless we took the beloved cat Fluffy along. But the problem with Fluffy is Fluffy wasn't actually alive. Fluffy had not only died, but expired probably 3 days prior.
Oh, no.
Had been marinating and decomposing in this poor lady's house. So she was insistent that we attempt to resuscitate Fluffy before we went anywhere and went to hospital. So as you can imagine, I'm not like an after-hours vet. So I'm looking at my partner. You know, we're puzzled, going, what do we bloody do? There's no way I'm putting the defib on this cat. I'm not doing chest compressions on the thing.
Mouth to mouth.
Do the defib. That'd be funny.
Exactly. So it's like, what are we going to do? What are we going to come up with to convince this woman to come along to hospital? Because she was the one dying. She needed to come along. So the plan we improvised, we found like an oxygen mask that's designed for a child. So we slipped that on to sort of convince her that we were giving the cat oxygen. And that seemed to be enough. She eventually agreed to come to hospital, but this cat still had to come along. So I don't know if you've ever been in the back of an ambulance, but there's not a lot of room and you can't roll the windows down.
Oh, no.
So I had to wrap the cat up in a load of blankets and space blankets and, all this sort of thing so I could survive, and just keep in the back with the thing. And no, it gets better. So I've done that. The cat's along, I'm preserving my sense of smell. We get to hospital. And in amongst, I was kind of planning just to chuck it in a biohazard bin or something before we got to hospital, but I sort of forgot about that. And as we get in, we're handing the patient over. The doctors and nurses begin assessing, and they're ripping the blankets off. And before I've had a chance to actually let them know about the cat, they've discovered it. And you can imagine the horror and the shock as a half decomposed, mummified cat has emerged from these blankets. And I'm standing there looking incredibly sheepish and trying to explain myself why I brought a half rotten cat along to hospital. So I had to buy a lot of coffees that day, as you can imagine.
Did she survive?
The lady survived. Yeah, the cat
well done.
Had used up the last of its 9 lives, but the lady was all good.
What about Tim? I believe there's a story in the book about a furry who took it too far. Of course, furries are adults who like to dress up as
animals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope the furry lobby doesn't come after me for this one, but try and cancel me. But this is a story from a triage nurse. So I spin some yarns from the doctors and the nurses in the ED as well. So this was the day a 6-foot grown man turned up at the ED in the full-blown fox suit, tail, ears, paws, the whole lot. And one of his complaints was that his paws were numb. So not his hands, his paws, because he'd been living in this thing for 3 days. And the poor glove things had actually cut off the circulation to his hands. But again, this one gets better. His second complaint was the classic "It burns when I pee." So he'd obviously been getting involved in some sort of fox mating ritual with his fellow fox furries, and contracted some sort of UTI. But as you may or may not know, to test a UTI, you need a specimen jar. You need to put a sample in a specimen jar. But this bloke he's not a person, he's a fox, so he couldn't use a specimen jar.
Why isn't this in the song, What Does the Fox Say?
Well, that's why the book's better. But yeah, so they had to fashion like a litter tray out of like a tray that soaking bandages in, somehow extract a sample because, the guy wouldn't use a regular specimen cup like a normal person was. So they cobbled this thing together. He eventually agreed. And then somehow, they were able to take that to the pathology lab and get some sort of urine sample and test for his UTI.
Did you put him straight in the psych ward after that?
Well, this is the problem we find these days, Fev. When these people come to emergency, it's like, do we ring the vet or do we take him to the psych ward? It's like when a man turns up and says, I'm pregnant, it's like, do we take him to the birthing unit or does he go to the psych ward? This is the dilemma you find these days.
And how's it, Fev, about 10 years ago, 15 years ago now, drunk jaywalked in Brisbane, you ended up in a psych ward.
Yeah.
You weren't dressed as a fox.
Yeah. I would have just said to the fox,
paws are
mate,
sore.
you either take the suit off or take it to a vet, because if a fox has got a UTI, they just shoot it. That'd get him in there.
The threshold is very low these days for what we've got to tolerate.
But it's true. Like, Tim, I've got a couple of friends who are nurses, and you can't call things out anymore for fear of you're discriminating, you're prejudiced, but they can see things and go, I think
you're a man in a fox uniform.
You can't, which is difficult.
Yeah, they're probably not as silly as me writing books and coming on radio shows and risking their career, but, I'll be okay.
We love that you keep writing these books, Tim. If you want to get Tim Booth's book, You Went to Emergency for What? It's out now at all good bookshops, or head to panmcmillan.com.au. By the way, also, if we do have any doctors, nurses, people who work in emergency, ambos listening, 131060, tell us more stories on the radio. We want to hear them.
Yeah, you can remain anonymous or whatever. We can change your name. Get involved, 131060. Tim, thanks for your time.
No, thank you, and I'll see you when I write the next one.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.